The moment I saw that truck parked at my mom's house, I knew everything was about to change, but nothing prepared me for what I heard next. My name is Claire Jennings, and this is the story of the day everything I thought I knew about love, family, and truth came crashing down, all because of one truck parked at the wrong house. It was a chilly March morning in Asheville, North Carolina, the kind where the fog hangs low like a secret trying not to be discovered. I was just getting out of the cab, suitcase in hand, excited and nervous to surprise my mom with an early birthday visit. The gate to her cottage creaked in that familiar way, but something was off. The air felt still. Too still. That's when I saw it. A navy blue pickup truck. At first I thought I was imagining things. Same make, same dent above the left taillight, same faded bumper sticker that said, "Measure twice, cut once." My heart sank. That truck was Daniel's. My fiancé, the man I'd spent the past 11 months building a life with. I blinked hard, hoping I was wrong. But when I stepped closer, my worst fear twisted into reality. It was his license plate. I stood frozen at the front steps. Inside I could hear voices. My mother's, low, distressed, and Daniel's, but not how I knew him. His tone was serious, heavy. "They can't find out like this," he said. "Find out what?" I pushed the door open slowly. Cinnamon hung in the air like it always did in her kitchen, but so did something else. Tension, panic, and a truth waiting to detonate. Daniel was seated at the table. My mom stood by the stove, gripping a mug like it was anchoring her to the world. When they saw me, both paled like they'd seen a ghost. "What's going on?" I asked. My voice was too calm, too steady, but inside I was crumbling. "Claire," my mother said, "we were going to tell you. Together." She didn't get to finish. Because in that moment, I realized something was broken. Not just trust, not just faith, but reality. If you've ever walked into a room and felt like the truth was waiting there to ambush you, like your life just turned a corner you didn't mean to take, leave a like and stay with me. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about what we do when everything we thought was solid slips from beneath our feet. The silence was a beast pressing down on all three of us. Daniel finally stood. "Claire, please, sit. Let us explain." But I didn't move. "I came to surprise my mother," I said. "Why are you here before me? Why are you here at all?" He opened his mouth, but my mom raised her hand, stopping him. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" My voice cracked. She hesitated. "It's about your father and Daniel." The room spun. My father, the man I never met, the man my mother rarely spoke about. Daniel took a step toward me, guilt etched across his face. "Claire, we found something out recently, something we didn't expect." And that was the moment everything in me screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Because what do you do when the person you love and the person who raised you are sharing a secret so big? It changes who you are. You listen, or at least, you try. I didn't sit down right away. I didn't trust the floor to hold me, much less the words I was about to hear. But I finally lowered myself onto the edge of the chair, more out of necessity than choice. My mother stood silently by the stove, her shoulders tense beneath her cardigan. Daniel pulled out the chair beside mine and sat, but not too close, like he knew that distance was safer for now. She began quietly. "You've asked about your father before, Claire. I never told you much. Just that he was a soldier. That he left before you were born." She paused, eyes on the coffee pot like it might reveal the rest for her. That wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. My fingers clenched around the edge of the table. "What do you mean?" She inhaled shakily. "His name was Marcus Whitman. We met when he was stationed at Fort Bragg. I didn't know he was married, not until it was too late." Daniel's eyes snapped to her. "Wait, Whitman." She nodded. "Yes, Marcus Whitman." Daniel went pale. His lips parted slightly, like a puzzle just clicked into place. That's the man my mom always said was my dad." The breath left my body like I'd been punched. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not." "I didn't know about you, Claire," Daniel said quickly, voice rising. "I swear I didn't. My mom never said anything about another child. Not once." I shook my head. "This doesn't make sense." My mother sat down slowly. "I found out I was pregnant right after Marcus left. I never told him. I didn't want to ruin his family. I raised you alone. I thought it was the right thing. And Sandra," I turned to Daniel. "She raised you thinking Marcus was your father." He nodded stiffly. "Yes, or she made me believe it. But I always had doubts. He was never around, never called. It felt hollow." I stood up abruptly. My hands trembled and I couldn't tell if it was rage, heartbreak, or both. So you're telling me that after everything, after a year of building a life together, we might be siblings? No, Daniel said just as quickly. We don't know that yet. We need to find out for sure. My voice cracked. I slept beside you. I kissed you. I shared everything. I know. His voice broke. I know. And I need to fix this. If there's any way to fix it. But how do you fix something like this? How do you rewind the hours, the memories, the mornings, wrapped in each other's arms, the whispered, I love you, says? You can't. You just stand there in the ruins of what used to be certain and try to breathe. I left the house without another word. My mother called after me, but I didn't stop. The sky was heavy with clouds, the scent of rain already in the air. My boots crunched against the gravel, but I didn't hear them. All I could hear was Daniel's voice overlapping with my mother's echoing in my skull. We didn't know. We didn't mean to. We didn't mean for this to happen, but it had. I sat in my car for nearly an hour before I could start it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I drove back to the city in silence, not even the radio to distract me from the deafening chaos in my mind. When I got back to our apartment, Noah's apartment now, I couldn't go inside. I stood in the hallway staring at the door we used to decorate with sticky notes and inside jokes, and suddenly it was just wood. Just a barrier. Just a before. If you've ever had a moment where your world cracked right in half, where love collided with truth and left you breathless, leave a comment below. Share what choice you made. I'm not sure I chose anything that day. I think I just broke. And sometimes, that's all you can do. For the next few days I vanished. I didn't go back to the apartment. I didn't answer Daniel's texts. I didn't return my mother's calls. I crashed at my friend Savannah's place, an old friend from culinary school who didn't ask questions when I showed up with red eyes and a duffel bag. She just handed me a blanket and a glass of water and let me unravel in silence. It's a strange thing losing your footing in your own life. You wake up in a familiar world, but everything feels counterfeit. The coffee you drink tastes hollow. The shower scalds too much. Every corner reminds you of a truth that stole your breath. I barely spoke. Savannah tried to get me to eat, but I mostly pushed food around the plate. And then one night, 5 days after Denton, the nightmares started. Flashbacks of Daniel laughing in the kitchen, his hand brushing mine. Then his voice twisted. We might be siblings. I would bolt upright in bed, drenched in sweat, shivering. On the 6th day, something shifted. I was digging through my bag for a charger when I found a small envelope at the bottom. It had my name on it in Daniel's handwriting. It must have been slipped in during the chaos. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single page. No greeting. No apology. Just 5 sentences. I don't know who I am right now, but I know who you are. You're the most honest thing that's ever happened to me, and if there's even a 1% chance this isn't what it seems, I have to know. Because I can't lose you to a lie. I read it again and again. Then I called my mom. She picked up on the first ring like she'd been waiting by the phone every minute since I left. Her voice cracked as she said my name. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. I just asked, do you still have anything from Marcus? A photo, a letter, anything? She went quiet. Then I do. I told her I was coming over. 2 hours later, I was sitting on her couch, a thick folder in my lap. Inside were old letters, worn photos, even a copy of a discharge paper from the army base. The name was there clear as day, Marcus Whitman, and next to it no mention of children, no mention of Sandra, nothing. My mother pointed to one photo. That's the last picture we took. Before he left. Before I knew he was married. I flipped the photo over, dated March 1997, my birthday December 1997. I did the math. So, he might not be my father at all, I whispered. She nodded. Claire. I kept the truth from you because I was scared. I thought protecting you from the pain of knowing you were a child from an affair would somehow be better. But you're not even sure he's my father. No, she said, I'm not. It hit me like cold water. I had based my entire identity on a man I'd never met, a name I barely knew, and now that might not even be real. I looked up. I need a DNA test. She nodded, and just like that, the next chapter began. Sometimes when life shatters you, the only way forward is to pick up one piece. Just one. And that day my piece was a swab and a signature on a lab form. I dropped off the sample the next morning, alone. And for the first time in a week, I felt something like clarity. Like maybe I was walking towards something real. Days turned into a week. Every morning I checked my phone first thing, hoping for news. But all I got were silence and waiting. Daniel reached out once, then again, leaving messages full of hope and apology, but I wasn't ready. I needed answers before I could face him. And then one afternoon, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The results. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, hands trembling. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Probability of biological relationship sent. Daniel wasn't Marcus Whitman's son. He wasn't my half-brother. He wasn't even related to me. The truth exploded inside me. The knot of dread, confusion, and heartache started to unravel. I didn't know whether to scream, laugh, or cry. Instead, I stared out the window, watching rain streak down the glass, each drop blurring the world like my thoughts. Then I called Daniel. His voice answered on the third ring, tired and raw. "I have the test," I said softly. There was a long silence. "Claire, what does it say?" "It's not what we feared. We're not related." I could hear the breath he didn't realize he was holding release. "Are you okay?" I swallowed. "I don't know yet. But I want to see you. I want to talk." He said he'd be there in an hour. When he walked through the door, I saw the weight in his eyes, the fear of hope, the fear of heartbreak. We sat in silence, letting the news settle between us like dust. He finally spoke. "All this time, I thought I was someone I wasn't. I tried to live up to a man I barely knew. Now, I'm just trying to find out who I really am." I nodded. "Me too." That night, we cooked together. It was clumsy, awkward, but somehow comforting. Daniel watched every stir and sizzle like food was more than sustenance, like it was healing. Between the smell of rosemary and garlic, we started to rebuild what nearly broke. If you've ever faced a truth that could either tear you apart or set you free, share your story in the comments. Let's support each other through the hardest turns life throws at us.
Slowly, piece by piece, we found our way back. Not as the people we once thought we were, but as something new, something real.
The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of questions and quiet moments. Daniel and I were no longer burdened by the terrifying possibility of being siblings, but that relief brought with it a new set of challenges. Who were we really? Who had we been pretending to be? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on us like the humid North Carolina air in the thick of summer. One evening, as we sat in our tiny apartment cluttered with takeout boxes and stray cookbooks, Daniel pulled out an old photo album his mother had sent. The pages were yellowed edges, frayed from years of handling. I traced my finger over a picture of a young woman, stiff and composed in a tailored skirt and pearls. "That's Sandra," Daniel said softly, his voice almost reverent. "My mother. She always seems so distant, but this photo, she looks almost scared." He turned the page to reveal a uniformed man standing between two women, Sandra on one side, my mother on the other. "That's Marcus Whitman," he said quietly. "The man I thought was my dad. The man who left when I was 5. The room fell silent, the kind of silence that fills a space with unspoken pain. I swallowed hard, feeling the pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve click into place. "Marcus," I whispered. "My mom said my dad was Charles Carter, but she never mentioned Marcus." Daniel looked at me with eyes full of confusion and sorrow. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe Marcus and Charles are different people. Maybe. But a whisper inside me told a different story, a story I wasn't ready to hear. We didn't speak about it again that night. Instead, we talked about dreams of opening a bakery, of running a farm-to-table restaurant, of a future that felt tantalizingly close, yet frighteningly uncertain. Daniel started calling me Chef Claire whenever I nailed a recipe. I teased him as Fix-It Dan after he duct-taped our leaky sink. Despite everything, we found solace in these small moments, building a life piece by piece. But reality waited, lurking just beyond the kitchen window. One morning, my mother's voice on the phone was unsteady. She wanted to meet to finally share the full story, the one she'd buried deep beneath years of silence and fear. I drove back to Denton, the landscape flashing by in a blur of greens and browns. When I stepped into my childhood home, the air was thick with tension and cinnamon, the familiar scent now tinged with dread. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed, her hands trembling as she handed me a worn envelope. Inside was a DNA test, the key to everything and nothing. As I unfolded the paper, my heart pounded in my chest. The probability 0%. Daniel and I were not biologically related. Tears welled up, a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. The nightmare we'd feared was not real. But what now? How do you move forward when the foundation you'd thought was solid turns out to be shifting sand? That night, I stood in the dim light of our apartment watching Daniel sleep. His face was peaceful, unaware of the storm his heart had weathered. I touched his hand gently, promising myself that no matter what, I wouldn't let go. Because sometimes love is about choosing to fight not against each other, but against the shadows that threaten to pull you apart. If you've ever faced a truth that shook your world and made you question everything, I invite you to share your experience in the comments. Together we can find strength in vulnerability. The day after I received the DNA results, the weight of uncertainty didn't lift as I had hoped. Instead, it pressed harder, pushing me into a whirlwind of emotions I wasn't prepared to face. I needed to talk to Daniel, to look him in the eyes and share everything, but fear held my words hostage. He called me later that evening, his voice tentative, careful not to shatter the fragile connection between us. "Claire, I know this has been overwhelming. I'm here. Whenever you're ready." I wanted to believe that, but what did ready even mean? Ready to confront a past neither of us truly understood. Ready to rebuild a future that seemed suddenly fragile. We agreed to meet the next day at a small diner halfway between Greenville and Asheville. The kind of place with cracked leather booths and jukeboxes that hadn't worked since the 80s. The setting felt fitting, worn and real, much like us. When I walked in, Daniel was already there, nursing a black coffee and staring out the window. The moment our eyes met, a silent conversation passed between us, years of love and pain compressed into a single glance. "I've been thinking," he said quietly. "Maybe it's not about the blood ties we don't have. Maybe it's about the family we've chosen. The one we build with trust and love no matter the history." His words were both a balm and a challenge. Could love really be enough to heal this? Could trust be rebuilt after so much had been questioned? We spent hours talking about everything and nothing. About fears and hopes, the family secrets that had shaped us, and the uncertain path ahead. We laughed at memories of burnt pancakes and duct-taped sinks, and we cried over dreams delayed. In the days that followed, I reached out to my biological father, Dr. Adam Whitman, a surgeon in Greenville. Our first meeting was quiet, a blend of curiosity and tentative connection. He remembered my mother but had no idea I existed until that moment. His eyes filled with tears when I said my name, and though the past couldn't be undone, there was an unspoken promise of a future. Meanwhile, Daniel's mother, Sandra, shared her story, a tangled web of mistakes and regrets, a desperate attempt to protect her son that had only caused more pain. She admitted to fabricating the truth about Daniel's father, hoping to shield him from heartbreak, but instead trapping them all in a maze of lies. The complexity of our families was overwhelming, but it forced us to confront the reality that love and family are rarely perfect. They are messy, complicated, and often forged in fire. One evening, as we sat on the balcony surrounded by my tiny garden of herbs and succulents, Daniel turned to me. "You know, sometimes I'm scared that the past will keep pulling us apart, that the truth might be too much." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "But we're still here. We're still choosing each other. And that choice, that's what matters." If you've ever faced family secrets that threaten to break you, or love tested by impossible odds, share your story below. Let's remind each other that even when life gets messy, hope remains. Our relationship wasn't suddenly perfect after all the revelations, but it was real, raw and fragile, yet full of hope. One afternoon, Daniel suggested we invite both our mothers to dinner. The idea seemed simple, but the reality was anything but. I spent the day cleaning our small apartment, straightening the mismatched chairs and dusting the tabletop where so many memories had been made. Daniel tried unsuccessfully to fix the wobbly kitchen table leg. "Engineering, creative problem solving," he joked, but even his smile couldn't mask the tension brewing beneath the surface. When the evening came, my mother arrived first, carrying a jar of homemade peach preserves, her hands trembling slightly but her smile brave. "You look beautiful," she whispered, pulling me into a warm embrace. "You look brave." Sandra followed, her usual poised demeanor, replaced by something softer, carrying a plate of deviled eggs like a peace offering. She kissed Daniel's cheek and hugged me gently. The final guest, Dr. Adam Whitman, arrived just before dinner with a bouquet of sunflowers and a shy smile. "For my daughter," he said quietly. Our small table was crowded with 7 people, and at first conversation was tentative and polite. Weather talk, new jobs, small talk filled the spaces. But eventually Sandra broke the silence. "I know I hurt all of you," she said, voice cracking. "And I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make that right." My mother nodded slowly. "We all made mistakes. Some to protect our children, but those choices caused more pain than we ever intended. I thought hiding the truth would shield you. It didn't." Daniel took my hand under the table and cleared his throat. "If it's okay, I'd like to say something." All eyes turned to him. He stood visibly nervous but steady. "A year ago, I met a girl who had just been through hell but still had the strength to make a home-cooked meal from an almost empty fridge. I thought I was helping her, but she helped me become someone I like." His voice wavered. "I spent my life trying to live up to the man I thought was my father. Now I know who we are isn't about blood. It's about who we choose to be and the love we hold on to." He looked at me then, eyes shining with hope. "And I choose you." Tears streamed down my face before I could stop them. "I love you," he whispered. A quiet applause filled the room, genuine and warm. As we raised our glasses, lemonade for my mom, wine for the others, we toasted not to the past, but to what we had yet to become. This night wasn't just a dinner. It was the first page of our new story, written with forgiveness, honesty, and love. If you've ever had to rebuild broken bridges or find love where it seemed impossible, share your experience below. Your courage might be the light someone else needs. The weeks that followed that dinner were quiet but filled with small moments of healing. Daniel and I slowly stitched together the fragments of our fractured past into something new, fragile, but undeniably ours. We spent evenings cooking together in the cramped kitchen of our apartment, trying new recipes and laughing when things inevitably went wrong. Daniel would bring me ingredients he'd found at the farmer's market, star anise, fresh basil, exotic cheeses, challenging me to turn them into something magical. I didn't just cook for him. I cooked for both of us, for the life we were trying to build despite the chaos. One rainy afternoon, I found Daniel sitting with an old photo album on his lap. The pictures showed people I had heard about but never truly met: his mother, Sandra, in a strict pose, his father, Marcus, in uniform, a young couple who looked like they carried more secrets than smiles. He looked up and said quietly, "I've spent my whole life chasing a shadow. Now I'm learning to live in the light." We talked about the future, a small bakery, a farm-to-table cafe, maybe even a house with a garden where we could grow herbs and vegetables. Our dreams felt tentative but real, like buds ready to bloom after a long winter. But even as we moved forward, the past still lingered. Questions about identity, about family, about who we were and who we wanted to be came up again and again. I found myself reaching out to my biological father, Dr. Adam Whitman, a surgeon who lived quietly in Greenville. Our first meeting was awkward and emotional. He admitted he'd never known I existed, but his eyes held a tenderness that made me believe in second chances. Daniel's journey was different. Sandra reached out to him with news of his real father, Dr. Eric Langston, living in Denver. The revelation rocked him. "I've spent 21 years living someone else's story," he told me one night, "and now I don't even know who I am." We sat on the floor of our apartment, backs against the couch, sharing fears and hopes. "Maybe I'll never meet him," Daniel said. "Maybe that's okay. Maybe just knowing he's out there is enough." I held his hand and whispered, "You don't have to have all the answers now. We'll find them together." If you're watching this and struggling with your own identity, with family secrets or unexpected truths, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is keep going, even when the path is uncertain. Our story isn't perfect, but it's ours, messy, complicated, and full of love. As the days turned into weeks, Daniel and I found ourselves slowly moving toward a place of peace, not just with each other, but with our tangled pasts. It wasn't easy. Every phone call, every visit to our parents was a delicate dance between old wounds and new beginnings. One Sunday morning, Daniel woke me before sunrise. He took my hand and led me back to the park where we used to walk before classes, where laughter once filled the air and flour dusted our clothes from impromptu baking experiments in our tiny kitchen. Under a blossoming dogwood tree with pale pink petals drifting down like confetti, he knelt on one knee. "Claire," he said, voice steady but trembling with emotion. "I've loved you through every doubt, every secret, every shadow of uncertainty. I want to love you as my wife, no matter what the past says." I cried, not from sorrow but from relief and hope. The ring was simple, a thin gold band with a tiny green stone that reminded him of the sage plant I always kept on our windowsill. "You make everything grow," he said softly. We planned a small wedding for late fall, no grand halls or fancy dresses, just us, our mothers walking us down the aisle side by side, homemade food on mismatched tables beneath the canopy of trees. I made my own cake, a rustic apple cinnamon recipe handed down from my grandmother. Daniel built the arch for our ceremony out of reclaimed wood, a symbol of how we were rebuilding our lives from what was left. The day was imperfect in the best possible way. The sun filtered through golden leaves, children ran and laughed, and old friends toasted with homemade lemonade and crisp white wine. When I looked into Daniel's eyes, I saw not the confusion or pain of months ago, but the strength of a love that had endured. Later that evening, as the string lights flickered overhead, we stood wrapped in each other's arms in my mother's garden. "We should have broken," I whispered. Daniel shook his head gently. "No, we bent. We cracked, but we didn't break." Above us, stars blinked into view, tiny promises in the vast sky. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. If you've ever wondered whether love can survive secrets and pain, I want you to know it can. Sometimes love isn't about fairy tale endings. It's about choosing each other again and again despite everything. So where are you watching from right now? If you've faced a love tested by hardship, share your story below, because every act of courage reminds us we're not alone. Our life together began to take on a new shape, one that was built not on assumptions or half-truths but on honesty and intentionality. Even though the past still cast long shadows over us, Daniel and I focused on carving out a space where we could be ourselves without fear. One afternoon while cooking dinner, I told him about a secret ambition I'd kept tucked away for years: to open a small farm-to-table cafe, one where we'd use fresh local ingredients and serve dishes inspired by my mother's recipes. Daniel smiled and said, "I want to help build it with you. Fix it up, make it ours." We started looking for a bigger apartment, a place with real floors, good windows that didn't leak, and enough room for a tiny herb garden on the balcony. Moving day was chaotic but joyful. My mother showed up with old curtains and enough casserole dishes to stock a restaurant. Sandra sent a waffle iron and a handwritten recipe titled "For Sunday Mornings Worth Remembering." Even Dr. Adam Whitman came by during one of my final culinary presentations, surprising me with a single sunflower and a joke about burnt toast that made everyone laugh. Slowly our families began weaving together, not perfectly, but with genuine effort. Daniel's biological father, Dr. Eric Langston, eventually met me and Daniel in person. It was quiet and formal, but steady. After hours walking through a botanical garden in Denver, Daniel said, "He's not the man I imagined, but he's someone I want to know." As for me, meeting Dr. Whitman was both humbling and healing. He hadn't known about me, but he didn't hesitate to offer time, space, and the chance to build a relationship. It wasn't the father-daughter story I'd dreamed of, but it was real, and that was enough. One morning before dawn, Daniel woke me and led me back to the park where our journey had first begun. Under the budding branches, he knelt again and proposed, not with grandeur but with heartfelt sincerity. His simple gold ring, adorned with a small green stone, symbolized growth and resilience, themes that had come to define us. As the leaves turned gold and crimson in the fall, we celebrated a wedding filled with laughter, family, and food made with love. Our mothers walked us down the aisle together, side by side, marking a new beginning for all of us. That night, beneath the string lights in my mother's garden, I whispered, "We should have broken." Daniel held me tighter. We bent. We cracked. But we didn't break. In that moment, I understood that family isn't just about blood. It's about the love, the choices, and the courage to keep moving forward even when the past threatens to hold you back. If this story has touched you, if you believe in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, please share your thoughts below. Your voice could be the hope someone needs today. Not long after our wedding, life settled into a comforting rhythm. The busy days of culinary school, late-night study sessions, and weekend farmers markets filled our calendar, but there was always space for quiet moments together. Our tiny apartment was a sanctuary filled with the scents of fresh herbs and simmering sauces, a place where laughter mingled with the clatter of pots and pans. I introduced Daniel to my professors as my husband, and while saying those words felt strange on my tongue, they anchored a new reality for both of us. The man I had loved, the man I had almost lost, was now by my side, openly and proudly. Meanwhile, Daniel and I continued to nurture relationships with our families, carefully weaving a new tapestry from threads that had once felt tangled beyond repair. Dr. Eric Langston, Daniel's biological father, began making occasional trips to visit us. Each visit was tentative but marked by a slow building of trust and understanding. The two men walked for hours in Denver's botanical garden, discussing things that only time and honesty could heal. At home, my biological father, Dr. Adam Whitman, became a quiet but steady presence. He surprised me one day by attending my final culinary presentation, bringing a single sunflower and a joke about burnt toast that made the room erupt in laughter. His presence was a gentle reminder that family can be chosen and that love isn't always tied to perfect timing. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Daniel and I sat on the balcony surrounded by the green jungle of herbs and succulents we had cultivated together. He turned to me with a look of vulnerability rarely seen before. "Sometimes," he said, "I'm scared. Scared that one wrong move, one buried secret could tear us apart." I smiled and brushed a stray lock of hair behind his ear. "We fought for this for us even when we didn't know what we were fighting for." That night, wrapped in the quiet hum of our home, I knew that whatever storms might come, we would face them together. Our love had been tested, broken, and rebuilt stronger than ever. If you're going through your own battles with family, love, or identity, remember you don't have to face it alone. Share your story below. Sometimes the bravest thing is to reach out and let others in. The months that followed felt like the slow turning of a page, a chapter of healing, understanding, and growth. Daniel and I had learned that love isn't just about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about the quiet perseverance to choose each other every single day. We decided to take a small step forward and invite both our mothers to join us for a casual dinner at the apartment. The plan was simple: share a meal, share stories, and maybe, just maybe, build bridges where once there were walls. That evening, the apartment smelled of rosemary chicken roasting in the oven and vanilla custard cooling on the windowsill. We decorated the table with cloth napkins I had carefully ironed and borrowed extra chairs from a kind neighbor. Daniel fussed over a wobbly table leg, balancing it precariously with an old geometry textbook, grinning sheepishly as I rolled my eyes. My mother arrived first, carrying a jar of peach preserves, her hands a little shaky but her smile warm. "You look beautiful," she whispered, embracing me tightly. "You look brave." Soon after, Sandra arrived, her usual composed self replaced by a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. She brought a plate of deviled eggs, a peace offering that spoke volumes. She kissed Daniel's cheek and gave me a gentle hug that surprised us both. Finally, Dr. Adam Whitman joined us, a tall, calm presence with a bouquet of sunflowers. "For my daughter," he said softly. The first part of the evening was filled with cautious small talk: the weather in Denver, Helen's new library position, the latest neighborhood bakery opening. But as the meal progressed, Sandra took a deep breath and spoke with quiet honesty. "I know I hurt every person in this room," she said, voice trembling. "But I want to make space for peace." My mother nodded slowly. "We all made mistakes, some to protect our children, some out of fear. I thought hiding the truth would shield Claire. It didn't." Daniel reached under the table and took my hand. Clearing his throat, he stood visibly nervous but steady. "If it's okay," he said, "I'd like to say something." All eyes turned to him. "A year ago, I met a girl who had just been through hell but still had the fire to make a home-cooked meal from an almost empty fridge. I thought I was helping her, but she helped me become someone I like." His voice trembled. "I spent my whole life trying to live up to the image of a man I thought was my father. But now I know who we are isn't about blood. It's about who we choose to be and the kind of love we hold on to." He looked at me then. "I choose you." Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. "I love you," he said. The room filled with a soft applause, genuine and full of hope. If you've ever struggled to forgive or been caught between love and pain, share your story below. Your courage could be someone's lifeline. Life, as it often does, began to settle into a new rhythm. The shadows of the past didn't disappear overnight, but Daniel and I found comfort in the everyday moments: the laughter in the kitchen, the quiet conversations late into the night, the shared dreams slowly taking shape. One chilly morning, as I prepared breakfast beside our small herb garden on the balcony, Daniel surprised me with a bouquet of chrysanthemums, wild white and a little unruly. "They look like something you'd grow on a windowsill," he said with a smile. I buried my face in the petals, feeling the weight of his thoughtfulness. "You remembered my favorite." Those flowers became a symbol of us, resilient, imperfect, and growing despite everything. We talked more openly now, sharing fears and hopes alike. I told Daniel about my wish to invite everyone, our mothers, my biological father, Daniel's father, to a single dinner, a chance to face the past and build a future. He blinked, surprised. "You want to put them all in the same room?" "Yes," I said firmly, "because if we don't, the silence will keep talking for us." Planning that dinner was no easy task. Inviting my father, Dr. Adam Whitman, who had only recently entered my life, brought nerves I hadn't expected. Daniel's father, Dr. Eric Langston, was even harder to reach. After 2 hesitant phone calls and a heartfelt handwritten letter from Daniel, he finally agreed to fly in from Denver. The apartment had never seen such preparation. I borrowed extra chairs, ironed napkins for the first time in my life, and dug out my grandmother's ceramic serving platter. Daniel nearly broke the table trying to fix a wobbly leg, but joked it was creative problem solving. The night of the dinner arrived lit by candles and filled with the smell of rosemary chicken and vanilla custard cooling on the windowsill. Our mothers arrived first, followed by the 2 men who are now part of our story. The conversation was tentative, at first polite and cautious. But then Sandra spoke, her voice steady but full of remorse. "I know I hurt every person here, but I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make amends." My mother nodded, adding, "We all made choices, some to protect, some out of fear, but they caused pain. I thought hiding the truth would shield Claire. It didn't." Daniel took my hand again, standing to speak with a courage born from everything we had endured. "If it's all right, I'd like to say something," he began, his voice trembling but sure. He told them about the girl he met who had just been through hell but still made a home-cooked meal, how she helped him become someone he could be proud of, how he learned that family isn't about blood but about love and choice. "I choose you," he said to me, eyes shining. Tears spilled down my cheeks as he whispered, "I love you." The room was silent for a moment before a soft, genuine applause filled the space. That night marked not just a meal shared, but a new beginning. If you've ever faced the challenge of healing fractured relationships or the courage it takes to build love from broken pieces, share your story below. Together we can find strength and hope. The weeks after the dinner were like waking up from a long, restless sleep. Slowly but surely, the walls we'd built around ourselves started to crumble, making room for healing and growth. Daniel and I found solace not just in each other, but in the new connections we were nurturing with our families. I remember one afternoon vividly. We were sitting on the balcony surrounded by the greenery we had lovingly cultivated, basil, thyme, and my 3 little succulents, each named after spices. The sun cast a warm glow over everything, filtering through the leaves and dappling our faces. Daniel looked at me thoughtfully, his eyes reflecting both fear and hope.
You know, he said softly, sometimes I'm scared that one wrong move, one hidden secret could tear us apart again.
I smiled, reaching out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind his ear. We've been through storms, Daniel. We bent, we cracked, but we didn't break. And I believe we're stronger because of it. Our relationship was no longer defined by past mistakes or secrets. Instead, it was shaped by the choices we made every day to be honest, to forgive, and to love fiercely, even when it wasn't easy. One day, Daniel surprised me with a letter. It was from his father, Dr. Eric Langston, a simple note filled with hope and the desire to build a relationship, no matter how slowly. It was a reminder that family can be complex, but love can still find a way. I thought about my own father, Dr. Adam Whitman, and the tentative bond we were forming. He had never known I existed until recently, but now he was a steady presence in my life, showing up to my culinary presentations and cheering me on with that awkward charm only a new father can have. The past was still there, a part of us that sometimes made us flinch or question, but it no longer controlled us. Instead, we focused on building a life filled with moments like these, quiet mornings filled with coffee and conversation, dinners shared with laughter and imperfect recipes, and evenings spent dreaming about the future. If you're watching and wondering whether it's possible to rebuild after loss and betrayal, I want you to know it is. It takes courage, patience, and a willingness to choose love every day. Wherever you are right now, if this story resonates, please share your own journey in the comments. Together, we can find strength in our shared struggles and hope in our shared dreams. The day we signed the lease for our new apartment felt like the closing of one chapter and the hopeful beginning of another. It was a modest place, bigger than our old apartment, but still cozy, a space with real floors, windows that didn't leak, and room enough for the little herb garden I'd started to dream about. My mother came along to help us move, carrying old curtains and enough casserole dishes to stock a small restaurant. Sandra from miles away sent a housewarming gift, a waffle iron and a handwritten recipe labeled for Sunday mornings worth remembering. Dr. Whitman, my father, visited frequently, his presence steady and comforting, a gentle reminder that family could be more than just bloodlines. Our fathers, both tentative yet hopeful, had finally met in person. Daniel described their meeting in Denver's botanical garden as quiet but sincere, a conversation between two men beginning to build a bridge across years of absence and pain. He's not the man I imagined, Daniel told me afterward, but he's someone I want to know. We didn't talk much about the past anymore. Instead, we focused on the life we were creating together. Evenings were spent cooking new recipes, dancing in the kitchen to music only we could hear, and making plans for the future. We dreamed of opening that farm-to-table cafe, of a home filled with laughter, love, and the smell of fresh-baked bread. One crisp autumn morning, Daniel woke me before sunrise and led me to the park where our journey had first unfolded. Beneath the blooming dogwood trees, he knelt, offering a simple gold band with a tiny green stone. "Claire," he said, voice steady and full of emotion, "I've loved you through every shadow, every uncertainty. I want to love you as my wife. No more doubts. Just us." Tears filled my eyes as I whispered yes. Our wedding was small, intimate, and filled with imperfect beauty, mismatched chairs, homemade food, the soft glow of string lights overhead. Our mothers walked us down the aisle side by side, a symbol of the new family we had chosen to build. When I looked into Daniel's eyes that day, I didn't see pain or fear. I saw resilience, hope, and a love that had weathered every storm. That night, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the stars, I whispered we should have broken. He smiled and replied, "No, we bent. We cracked, but we didn't break." For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. If you're watching this and believe in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, please share your story below. Let's remind each other that no matter how hard life gets, choosing love and courage can lead us to a beautiful new beginning. Looking back on everything that happened, I realize now that life rarely offers perfect answers or neat endings. Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes painful. But it was ours, a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the courage to keep moving forward despite the odds. Family isn't just about blood ties. It's about the bonds we choose to nurture and the love we commit to every day. Daniel and I learned that sometimes the hardest battles we face aren't with the people around us, but with the fears and doubts within ourselves. We bent under the weight of secrets and lies, but we never let those cracks become breaks. Love is a choice, a deliberate act of bravery. It means embracing imperfection, extending grace, and standing together in the face of uncertainty. Our journey taught me that peace isn't the absence of struggle, but the strength to find light in the darkest moments. If you found yourself lost in confusion or weighed down by past wounds, remember this: you have the power to write your own story, to choose healing over hurt, to build bridges where others see only walls. Thank you for listening to our story. If it touched your heart, please consider subscribing to this channel. Join our community where stories of courage, love, and transformation are shared every day. Leave a comment below about your own journey or what gave you hope today. Together we can remind each other that even in brokenness there is beauty. Even in endings there is the promise of new beginnings. And most importantly, remember to choose love, choose hope, choose to keep going.